I was standing on Market Street, and it's like probably 4 or 5 rows back from the street, but people were passing their babies up through the crowd so that they could have the Pope kiss the baby. And
oh wow,
amazingly, people would pass the baby right back. Like, personally, I would have been a little nervous, even though, yeah, okay, awesome, the Pope could kiss the baby, that'd be really cool. But no, people would pass the baby right back, and everyone was very gentle. Babies, they pass all the babies on.
Wow. Think about that risk. Like, you're like, oh yeah, take my baby, and then the poor baby doesn't even get to make it.
Babies made it back to their respective parents. I was amazed.
I don't know, that whole thing.
In a city like this.
If I think about it, people like, pass the babies, and then he's in his car, and he's just like, when you like
pass the baby up.
You miss a high five, and that's awkward. What's it like when you miss a baby to kiss? Like, all right, getting into another episode 51. The Pope passed away this morning. Have you heard?
Yes. Yes, I have. First thing.
We're going to react to what's happening. All right, let's just get right into this video. It should help us.
Pope Francis has passed away, and now the Vatican is in a rush. Everything has to be perfectly coordinated, or things can get really chaotic or worse.
Oh, yeah.
The Vatican has centuries of experience and has seen worst-case scenarios. That's why it has precise protocols in place, verifying the Pope's passing, moving him to St. Peter's, organizing the conclave down to the day and hour.
There's a new film out called Conclave. It's supposed to be interesting.
Yes, I've heard about it. In fact, both my parents told me to check it out, so I will do just that. Yeah.
Did they watch it?
They have, yeah. They said it was very good.
Okay.
They said it was very good, so it's worth seeing.
It's been a very long time since I've seen a good film.
Time is of the essence. The first order of business before anything else is to confirm the Pope is actually dead. Vatican officials used to do this confirmation used to be in the room he died in, but it now takes place in his private chapel. There, Cardinal Camerlengo, the prelate in charge of the Holy See's property and revenue, takes the command of the Vatican between now and the election of a new Pope. He will conduct what is known as the Silver Hammer Protocol.
I've heard about this. Okay, look at that fancy hammer.
Oh yeah, this is. I think I know what's involved
here.
This
meant tapping the deceased pontiff's head with a small silver hammer and calling out his baptismal name 3 times. The idea was quite simple.
Interesting.
If you don't wake up when someone's hitting you on the head with a hammer, you're probably dead. The silver hammer was very often. Popes have been around a while, that, people were actually not dead. They were just sick or in a coma, then they would come back. So I guess you did have to have, there's so much power on the line here, because popes weren't always like super friendly, I guess. They used to be like straight up generals of like the land,
They ran countries, and the Catholic Church today even is still technically a sovereign country. So it's kind of a
that I find that so fascinating how Vatican
Isn't that wild?
It's its own country, its own police force, its own money. It's really fascinating.
Used at least until the early 20th century, with Leo XIII's death in 1903. Wow. It may have stayed in place as late as John XXIII's death 60 years later.
Wow.
But you might be relieved to know it hasn't been used on Pope Francis. The Camerlengo, currently Kevin Cardinal Farrell, still called out, "George, are you dead?" 3 times. George was obviously not answering, and so Cardinal Farrell responded, "I declare that His Holiness Pope Francis is truly dead." Just to make sure, the Camerlengo might continue with an instrument, not a hammer, but an electrocardiogram.
Jeez.
That was how...
some modern technology. There we go.
It's I'll just keep it brief. When you sign up for public figure positions, I guess you have to be prepared for your body to be like a spectacle. Like the U.S. president, I just noticed, like when you sign up to be president, you will one day be like a spectacle of your body and the presentation.
It's a good point, right? You're almost like you're being your character, if you will. Your public face is property of then the people, the country, the state, or in this case, in the Pope's case, the church. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting.
And if the bigger they are, the larger they are. Normal people who live in those times kind of mark part of their life, that year, with that event. They might forget about it 5
yeah.
years later, but they'll be like, "Oh, I remember that." And that happens a lot when you start seeing the popes.
That's right.
You know?
That's right. Yeah.
So it's just, I guess I just said that because it's, if you're a private person, that is not a private thing. But maybe some people want to be lauded. They want their body to be important. They want their whole personality and just to be a spectacle, right?
It's true, right? Some people, I guess, view it as a the price of fame. Others want it because maybe they see it as I have a lot of great ideas. I want to do some good in the world, or whatever their reason is. It's the sacrifice I'm willing to make. Others have, more, I guess, narcissistic or ego-based intentions.
That is
all about
true.
me.
100% true. But also there are, I think in Rome, you could see it a lot in the documentation, how the throne would ascend to a descendant that it was born with that right and wasn't prepared, and how everything just went horribly wrong. I think that's actually far worse.
John Paul II's death was scientifically confirmed in 2000.
I remember when he got shot at. I think it was this Pope, and then they made the Pope mobile because somebody tried to shoot that Pope.
Oh yeah, it was the early, I think 1980s, right? Yeah,
the 80s.
Yeah, wow,
that's a heck of a dude that wants to go shoot a Pope. Hold on, we need to find out who wanted to shoot the Pope. All right, I pulled up the video of the guy who tried to shoot the Pope. Do you remember that Pope? That was St. John Paul II, right?
Oh yes, John Paul II was. I remember him well. He was Pope most of my life, actually.
Pope John Paul II was at the St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. It was his regular scheduled Wednesday general audience. The Pope was passing.
Oh my goodness!
Was that Mother Teresa? I think it was. So Mother Teresa.
I think it was. I believe that was Mother Teresa.
I thought she was further back, but she's actually more current.
Thousands of people blessing them from his open Pope mobile, when suddenly there were gunshots. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Wow. 2 bullets hit the Pope. 1 hit his abdomen. The other his left hand.
Oh damn! I didn't realize he got that hurt. He got hurt.
Yeah, I didn't realize he got hit that badly.
The other 2 bullets hit a 60-year-old American
but
woman.
Not. Wow.
And 21-year-old Jamaican woman, Rose Hill.
Oh no.
Someone else got
John
shot.
Paul II was rushed to Gemelli Hospital in Rome. He underwent a 5-hour-long surgery.
Oh wow.
Who had fired the shots?
Yeah. That's what we want to know. Who fired the shots? I do remember this Pope growing up. I did have to go to Catholic school, and then I went to school at night, so I got all the sacraments and all that. And his face I would see a lot on the walls.
Turkish man named Mehmet.
He's burned into my memory. I remember listening to his speeches and similar. Yeah.
This real quick. This is him. This is a man who woke up one day and
said,
"I'm going to shoot the Pope, the living embodiment of God," as far as their beliefs. Wow.
He was a member of the extremist right-wing organization.
You're going after a major world religious leader, whether you're you believe in that faith or not. You have to wonder, you really, to me, you're taking a risk no matter what it is. I mean,
a lot of them.
You really want to mess with that? Right?
A lot of them could be, suicide bombers. They're ready to die for their faith. That would probably be almost we would overthink it, and they'd be like, "No, I'm doing it," and be straight about it. Hold on, they say who he was affiliated with.
Right-wing organization Grey Wolves. Right-wing organization Grey Wolves. Why did he try to assassinate the Pope?
Grey Wolves?
We don't know.
I never heard of
once claimed, in fact, he was following the sedition attempt.
Yeah,
Pope John Paul II.
I'm sure they were just, radicalized people. They weren't like a full,
said from his hospital bed that he forgave, quote unquote, the brother who struck him. How did this episode shape history? It forced the Vatican to adopt.
Wow, bit of a tangent, but I was curious. I wanted to know who shot him.
Pope Francis's body was placed in an open coffin right away. Although this is a recent change, are you old enough to remember John Paul II's funeral? You would have seen his body. It was placed in an elevated bier called a canaletto, or deathbed. Pope Benedict XVI was placed.
Remember I was saying about how public the body is?
Oh yeah.
That is extremely public.
Placed on one too.
Pretty public.
But Pope Francis changed that idea in November of 2024. More on that soon. For now, the Camerlengo and his men immediately sealed the Apostolic Palace and began to take care of the Pope's property to secure it from theft. This tradition dates back to older times when there were
people would steal the Pope's stuff. That's crazy.
There was a much higher risk of someone stealing the deceased Pope's property than there is now. However, some items are purposefully destroyed to preserve the integrity of the Pope's office. The fisherman's ring would have been the first thing to go. As you can see, this was what it looked like before.
Okay.
Francis had a unique ring, as all popes did before him, and it was used to seal official documents.
Wow, that thing was powerful at one point. That thing was really changing history and making history, because that's what they would do. They would press it and put their sigil in there, and then that's how you would know it came from the Pope. Ain't that something?
It might not seem like much now, but in old times, official seals were vital to confer authenticity on
that's what I was just saying.
Documents, and the tradition continues in the Vatican. Cardinal Farrell had Francis's ring destroyed to prevent forgeries until recently.
That's interesting, right? So this is before like email and things like that. So if it was a really particular sigil or image, it you didn't want it to get replicated, because somebody could be like, past this execution, past this, and then all of a sudden innocent people are getting hung.
You could like pardon like half of like all of Christian Europe, and then someone could look and be like, wait a second, is that really the Pope?
I mean, imagine things that are more powerful than our government. I mean, we do powerful things, but this is a one person surrounded by people, obviously, but still, it was like the super president, the ultimate president.
Yeah, basically, essentially, at some level, an elected absolute monarch, really, and who is unquestioned in matters at least of faith and morals, according to Catholics. So it's really just like the immense weight the position holds and the power, really. You can.
The one thing that faith and religion's really where they get me is the impunity in which they give their orders. They're like, listen, this is my way. You're wrong. You're going to go to hell. You're going to burn forever if you don't comply with me. I am truly the greatest and cleanest and righteous being of them all. And some of those people they said that to had no idea what even their religion was, what their culture was. And it was just like, that didn't matter. And I couldn't imagine being the way I am today. It'd almost be like aliens coming to our planet and just taking over and being like, you're going to something crazy, right? Lick the street every day for 10 minutes. And I'd be like, I don't what are you talking about? And they'd be like, because it's so. And I'm like, and then they just force you to do something so outside of what you're used to, like licking the street for 10 minutes. My example is just so extreme because everything would be so extreme. And then they would come on top of that and just be like, you're damned for eternity. It's horrifying.
Yeah. You're not only, going to suffer in this life. It goes after you're gone.
And that's
I'll quote someone who said, you could die and escape North Korea. I mean, this is really morbid, right? But you can't die and escape God, right? So like if God, decides, or if God's representative on earth decides you are not worthy, I guess you're not worthy according to, some. And I have the same issue with it too. I'd rather be a citizen, not a subject. And so I'm more into, I won't surrender the intellect. Yes, I might think incorrectly. That's true. I may do things wrong, and I should be asked it's okay for someone to ask me to think about what I do and think before I do it. But thought crimes and, condemning me to an eternity of darkness. I mean, maybe, but I'm not closing the door on that. I like to hedge my bets here.
I've honestly never done that.
Who is that guy to say, right?
That's a great comparison. A subject to a citizen. I've never honestly thought of the two. It's very different. Is that him?
Yeah. Wow. That would look like
Was that like a fake guy?
Was it John the 23rd, I think?
Wow.
Yes. In fact, I believe I saw him in Rome, actually.
Wow. Him in person? You saw this, or you saw?
Yeah, like the actual. Saw this actually. Yeah. I wasn't old enough to actually see him in person, but I did see this, if memory serves correctly. Yeah.
All right.
Or in the Vatican. So
I'm gonna that very interesting. That was a great thought you had there. Compelling
Thank you,
thought.
sir.
So I'm gonna check out some of the Philadelphia stuff, and then we'll go from there.
Oh,
All right.
exactly.
That breaking news right now. The world is remembering Pope Francis. The pontiff died just one day after Easter Mass at the Vatican. And
How about that? One day.
That is crazy, right? We celebrate Easter in the West in the Roman Catholic Church, and
he talked to.
He dies the day after Easter.
Well, obviously he held out for that. He talked to J.D. Vance.
He held out
hours before he died. It's crazy.
Yeah, he did.
A month after surviving double pneumonia. I'm Erin Coleman.
And I'm Brenna White, in for Keith Jones. Here's a live look at the Vatican, where thousands of people have come to mourn the Pope.
Wow.
Here's what happens now. You can hear those church bells ringing. According to protocol.
You've been in the square, right? You've been there?
Yes, so I have been in St. Peter's Square there. Yeah, did
Cardinal
not see the
Kevin
Pope when I
Farrell
was
from
there.
Ireland will declare that the Holy See is vacant. He will preside over prayers and the blessing of the body of Pope Francis.
He will also remove the Pope's ring of the fisherman. It is the signet ring.
We just learned about that, yeah.
Used to authenticate important papal documents. After that, all cardinals will be summoned to the Vatican to prepare to elect a new Pope.
Wow.
Pope Francis visited Philadelphia 10 years ago in 2015. One of his stops was at the Cathedral Basilica of St. Peter and Paul.
NBC 10's Matt DeLucia was there then. He is there live now this morning. And Matt, you're speaking with the church's leaders about this loss.
All right, let's move it along here. This is
the Basilica will be open all day today, of course, for prayer. And we are going to have a special Mass at 12:05 in the Cathedral Basilica. The Archbishop will offer the Mass and preach at the Mass.
I like this green. I don't know if I could have. I really like this emerald green. It's a beautiful color.
I do. I really like that. Yeah, it reminds me. I actually attended the service. He had the huge, like it was a big outdoor mass. It was really interesting. It was something else. They did the readings in different languages, in Spanish, Vietnamese, and English.
Oh, wow.
I remember that was kind of interesting. And then they, of course, Greek and Latin, as well as English for most of it. But it was very really cool. It was a really cool experience.
Well, good on you. You were actually in the square that they, where it really happens, and then you also got to see this too. So I
got to see him live.
Way more than me.
As a way to encourage all of us to turn to our faith today. Our faith is real. I find it incredible that we're celebrating the great octave of Easter, and this is the day
I believe that behind the man up here, this is a homeless person. So I think that's homeless guy.
I think you're right.
Actually.
Yes, you are.
I mean, how fitting for
I could be wrong. I may be
religion.
judging, but
I don't know. I see. He sleeps here. I don't know. It looks a little sleepy.
The Lord has called the Holy Father home when the faith is as present as it can be to us as far as the power, the resurrection of Jesus. And so we entrust our Holy Father to the Lord, that as the Holy Father died with him in the sacraments, he now rises with him to his place in glory. But we pray for him. We pray that he'll know all the promises of Christ in heaven.
Yeah.
Hey, bring me back to...
Wow. So I guess when you're completely devout, the fear is gone. So,
2015.
Yeah.
Such
if you really
the most
believe.
important thing for
Oh, they believe. Well, I mean, yeah, that's definitely a homeless guy back there.
Catholics and for all of us to do is to pray for our Holy Father, to pray for the Church. There, of course, will be the funeral mass for our Holy Father.
I feel like they left him in this shot on purpose because, I don't know, it does add more to the scene because you could still see the homeless, the church, the weak, the suffering, the whatever. I don't know. Like, they're so synonymous with it. That. They definitely chose it.
Right.
That because whoever shoots with the camera, I know that they choose their shot, and I don't know, like he's in there.
And then there's a period.
Could you imagine being the camera guy? Sir, you got to move out of the way.
Or you could just shoot down the street.
Right. But
you
no,
could
I
shoot
think
maybe
you're right. He did it on
the other building, the building across the way. I don't know. I think it's a a dramatic effect.
Especially, and then preparations for the conclave, for the election of the new Holy Father.
Yeah.
The most important thing that all of us can.
All right, so props to the homeless guy. I'm not trying to pick on him. I'm just noticing that he was back there. Very cool that he did come to Philadelphia, and you were able to see that.
He did.
Yeah,
he did. Got to see that. That was very exciting. The crowds were huge. It was just a really interesting experience. It was I had a lot of fun. Actually, it was really neat. You had a lot of people too. People were friendly. The whole city was basically, at least the city center was shut down. That was also wild. So when you walked, I was able to walk like blocks, and the only thing I saw were like U.S. maybe National Guard, and Philadelphia police officers. I mean, it was wild.
Yep.
Just all the way up and down. It was just so quiet, other than the throngs of the faithful. It's just kind of something else.
Pretty cool.
Or interested people. Yeah.
I only saw it on the television. I saw when he was driving in the car. That was about the only thing I saw.
Oh yeah.
But he did seem. I do remember seeing him and thinking he seemed like a nice man. You know. I don't know.
Yeah, he did. I think he did. One thing that struck me too at his visit, I just remembered this. I was standing on Market Street, and it's like probably 4 or 5 rows back from the street, but people were passing their babies up through the crowd so that they could have the Pope kiss the baby. And
oh wow,
amazingly, people would pass the baby right back. Like personally, I would have been a little nervous, even though awesome, the Pope could kiss the baby, that'd be really cool. But no, people would pass the baby right back, and everyone was very gentle. The babies, they pass all the babies on.
Wow. That's something. Seeing babies getting passed up to, so the Pope could kiss
Yeah.
Wait, how was it more than one baby? How many babies was it? It was a lot of babies.
It was. So like one at a time, basically. Like, and obviously not every baby made it. They passed them, and people would pass the baby back as the Pope mobile slowly rode by, right? And maybe it was too late, Well, but you don't want the baby to go too far.
Think about that risk. Like you're like, oh yeah, take my baby, and then the poor baby doesn't even get to make it to the guy, and all of a sudden your baby's like in some like over there, and you're like, give me my baby back.
Someone else's arms, and they pass the baby back, and the baby's, as far as I know, I didn't see any or hear any stories of babies disappearing, but the babies made it back to their respective parents. I was amazed.
I don't know that whole
in
thing.
A city like this.
If I think about it, just people like pass the babies, and then he's in his car, and he's just like, when you like
pass the baby up.
You miss a high five, and that's awkward. What's it like when you miss a baby to kiss? Like,
that's a great point. The high five's left hanging.
The kid's just there, all like, you're like, look, a baby, and you're like, sorry, it's moving. Sorry, that's funny. I didn't think you were going to tell me that story.
Yeah, it's a wild one.
All right, that was a crazy episode. Okay, so the Pope's dead. God bless the Pope. He seemed like he seemed like a good Pope.
Rest in peace.
I know there's a lot of corruption in the Catholic Church, and I do very much want them to start showing what's in the basement, because they got a lot of great stuff in the basement.
Oh man, the Vatican archive is massive.
I think that Rome didn't completely fall. I think Rome lives and breathes in the basement of Vatican City, along with many other cultures that could get a lot more shine. They could get a lot more shine, and those books are suppressed. So I would just like to see some of the good books, right? Because we had what was the library? The Library of Alexandria. I believe
the ancient Library of Alexandria. Yeah.
I believe the closest thing that we currently have on this planet to that is what's in Vatican City. And I want.
You're probably right about that. Yeah,
I would love.
It would not surprise me.
Love if they would release some of that knowledge. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just had to get that in. All right, man. And with that, I'm out. Or we're out.
Peace.